The Armstrong family was a picture of perfection. Antonio Armstrong Sr., a former NFL player, and his beautiful wife Dawn were pillars of their community. They had 3 adorable kids and a thriving business. Together, they raised Josh, AJ, and Kayra on strong values of faith, family, and football, with both boys following in their father's athletic footsteps. They were the all-American family, admired and beloved. But this perfect image was tragically shattered on July 29, 2016, the morning when Antonio Sr. and Dawn became victims of a fatal shooting.
Houston 911, do you need medical, police, or fire?
Going to be police, as well as a transfer. He's whispering, advising just heard gunshots in the carriage.
And your name?
AJ.
Any medical attention needed?
I heard gunshots, so I don't really know.
In your parents' bedroom?
Yes. Your doors.
Can you hear anything else?
I don't know.
Does it sound like a handgun, rifle, or shotgun?
I know my dad has 3.
It was just past 1 a.m., and AJ was awake, battling restlessness. He had spent the day cocooned in his room, a Netflix marathon playing in the background as he nursed a bout of illness. Tossing and turning, he decided on one last trip to the bathroom before attempting sleep. As he stepped out of the bathroom, the sound of his parents' door creaking open caught his attention. Assuming it was his parents, AJ made his way downstairs, intending to ask for some medicine. But as he descended, the chilling sound of 2 gunshots, followed by another, pierced the silence. In a reflex of fear, he hurried back upstairs and dialed 911. Amidst the chaos, a masked intruder had violated the sanctity of the Armstrong home, leaving a trail of blood and horror in his wake. This night of terror brought with it a haunting question. Was this a botched robbery or something far more sinister? We're going to get into it, but first be sure to click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on updates to this story, trending true crime topics, and so much more. Now let's get into it. The Armstrongs were widely regarded as a remarkable family. Antonio Sr., a hardworking provider, was revered for his commitment to his loved ones. His achievements, particularly overcoming his humble beginnings in Houston's Kashmir Gardens, were a source of immense pride for his family. Born October 15, 1973, Antonio, the eldest of 3, grew up in challenging circumstances with a young mother, Kay, who was just 15 at his birth. His father died when Antonio was just 17, but he never truly knew him. Antonio's journey from a poverty-stricken upbringing to a successful football career is inspirational. After graduating high school, he earned a scholarship to Texas A&M University, where his prowess as a linebacker was unmistakable. His performance peaked during the 1994 Cotton Bowl against Notre Dame, where he was named the defensive player of the game.
Play action fake. Warning to go deep. Out of time and sacked to the 25-yard line by Antonio Shorter.
After college, he was drafted into the NFL by the San Francisco 49ers. He then continued in his football journey when he played briefly for the Miami Dolphins and the Rams, followed by a stint of Canadian football before his retirement brought him back to Houston. When Antonio returned to Houston, he transitioned into a new role, becoming a co-pastor in his mother's church. Antonio and Dawn's paths first crossed during her visit to the church, marking the beginning of a connection that would grow over time. As she became more involved with the church community, Dawn's natural charm and kindness shone through, endearing her to the congregation and the Armstrong family alike. She became a Sunday school teacher there. Her warm personality and genuine care for others quickly made her a beloved member of the church. When Dawn and Antonio met, she was a single mother to her toddler son, Josh. Embracing him as his own, Antonio adopted Josh, a fact Josh discovered only at the age of 13. Despite this, Antonio never differentiated between Josh and his biological children, AJ and Kayra. Dawn was a devoted mother, capturing every moment of her children's lives in pictures. She was deeply involved in their upbringing. AJ in particular saw her as the ideal mother for him. According to AJ, he appreciated her unique way of understanding and guiding him. AJ also had a profound bond with his father, whom he considered not just a parent, but his best friend. Antonio Sr. was actively involved in his sons' lives, coaching their football teams and supporting them in all of their endeavors. And just like his father, AJ was good at football, playing every position he was assigned with distinction. Following Antonio Sr.'s retirement from professional football, he transitioned into entrepreneurship, establishing himself as a motivational speaker and the owner of a fleet of gyms called First Class Gyms. Antonio devoted himself to ensuring his children had the access to opportunities and comforts he lacked in his own upbringing. Residing in the affluent Bel Air area of southeast Houston, AJ was attending the prestigious private school Kincaid, and Josh was away at Blinn College before transferring back home to the Art Institute of Houston. Josh briefly returned to the family home before moving into his own apartment nearby, where he lived with his girlfriend, Hannah. Meanwhile, Kayra, the youngest sibling at just 12 years old, still lived at home with her parents and big brother AJ. The Armstrongs were a close-knit family, but on the fateful morning of July 29, 2016, their idyllic family life was shattered when Dawn and Antonio were discovered tragically shot while they lay in their own bed.
Houston 911, do you need medical, police, or fire?
The police is Bel Air the transfer. He's whispering, advising he just heard gunshots in the parents' room.
And your name?
AJ.
Any medical attention needed?
I heard gunshots, so I don't really know.
In your parents' bedroom?
Yes. I heard the whisper. That makes me nervous.
Can you hear anything else?
I don't know.
Does it sound like a handgun, rifle, or shotgun?
I'm not good at guns, but I just don't know if it's anything like that. I know my dad has a gun. He's in his toilet. He's there.
Okay, can you hear anything else that's going on?
I feel like it's loud.
You're on the third floor? Don't leave from the safety of your room.
At 1:40 a.m., under the veil of a cloudy night, with the mercury hovering around 80 degrees, a chilling scene unfolded. AJ Armstrong, only 16, made a desperate call to 911. His voice, barely above a whisper, conveyed the urgency of the moment as he reported hearing gunshots from his parents' bedroom. The sound of something or someone colliding with the door as they fled sent AJ seeking for shelter in his third-floor bedroom. As the operator requested details on his location, AJ pleaded for them to hurry. The operator asked if he needed medical assistance, to which AJ replied, "I heard gunshots, so I don't really know." The operator confirmed, "In your parents' bedroom?" The conversation took a more ominous turn when AJ said, "Yes, and their door is cracked open. It's never cracked open." Seeking more details, the operator asked, "Can you hear anything else that's going on?" AJ described an unsettling, loud, high-pitched noise ringing in his ears. Huddled in his third-floor bedroom closet, the operator instructed AJ to not leave the safety of his room. However, AJ's thoughts quickly turned to his sister Kayra, whose room was perilously close to their parents. AJ pleaded with the operator for his sister's safety 4 times. His repeated pleas punctuated the tense wait for police intervention. He told the operator, My little sister's downstairs." There were spurts of silence on the line, but the operator worked to keep AJ engaged during the call. She asked, "Did it sound like a handgun, rifle, or shotgun?" To which AJ replied, "I'm not good with guns. I guess it was like a 15 or something like that. I know my dad has a gun underneath the... God, where does he keep his gun? I think he keeps his gun in his drawer right next to his bed." As police were dispatched to the home on the 5300 block of Palmetto Street, the operator asked again, "Do you know if anyone needs medical?" AJ replied, "I have no clue. I don't know." The conversation turned briefly to logistics, detailing the location of his sister Kayra's room in relation to their parents. AJ said her bedroom was on the second floor, near his parents' room. "When you come up the stairs, you go to the right," AJ said. At 1:46, the distant wail of sirens grew closer. AJ reported the sight of lights outside, seeking guidance from the operator on how to proceed. The instructions were clear. Wait for the police to signal. When the authorities requested, AJ, with a sense of urgency, ran downstairs and woke his little sister from a deep sleep.
Okay, they're asking you to step out of the house.
Yeah. Tara, you gotta get up. Come on, you gotta get up. Come on. Tara, I need you to get up. Tara, I need you to get up. Just come with me. Come on, come with me. You gotta go outside.
Then together, AJ and Kayra embarked on a brave descent from the safety of their rooms to meet the responders at the front door.
You gotta go outside. I was up in the bathroom and I heard gunshots and all. You gotta go outside and figure out what's going on. Come on, just grab my hand and stay behind me. Hey, I'm the one that called. Tara, come on.
16 minutes after initiating the distress call, AJ cautiously opened the front door, promptly identifying himself to the arriving officers as the caller. The officers, with measured precision, entered the home, thoroughly securing each corner as they advanced. Ascending the stairs and pushing open the double doors to the master bedroom, they were confronted with a gruesome and bloodied scene. Once the officers firmly established control over the crime scene, they allowed medical personnel to come in. Dawn was found in her bed, tragically deceased from 2 execution-style gunshots to her head. Beside her, Antonio was discovered with a single gunshot wound to his head. Amidst the chaos, the pressing question arose: was this the aftermath of a murder-suicide? Strangely, both victims had pillows covering their heads, but after an extensive search of the bedroom, detectives found no weapon, so they swiftly eliminated this theory. Despite the grave injury, Antonio was clinging to life, each breath a desperate battle for survival. His condition was critical, gasping for air, so he was swiftly taken to Memorial Hermann Hospital in hopes of life-saving treatment. A couple of hours after the tragedy unfolded, detectives converged on the scene. They were greeted by the somber sight of family members gathered outside the home. Intent on unraveling the night's events, detectives first needed to witness the grim reality inside. Navigating their way through the house and up to the second floor, they entered through double doors into what appeared to be an office. It was there where one detective spotted an oddity: a small bullet resting on the carpet, surrounded by bits of debris. Detectives mentally cataloged this discovery as they moved into the bedroom where the tragic scene lay. The 42-year-old mother, Dawn, was found lying on her left side, deceased. She was the victim of 2 gunshots behind her right ear. One pierced her earlobe, and the other close to it, just behind the ear. Her life was extinguished on the spot. But Antonio's absence was palpable, his presence marked only by the blood left behind from a severe head wound. As the investigation unfolded, Dawn's body was solemnly removed, and the search for clues continued. Venturing into the kitchen, the detectives encountered drawers flung open as if in the throes of a frantic search. Amidst the disarray, a .22 caliber pistol and a note, Its message, hastily scribbled and overwritten multiple times, sat on the counter. The discovery of no weapon in the bedroom led detectives to theorize a botched robbery. However, the evidence encountered in the kitchen prompted them to question, is this real, or is someone trying to throw us off the tracks? The peculiar find raised immediate suspicion among the detectives. Based on their experience, it didn't appear to be a note that a robber would leave. Could a burglar really have the composure to pen such a note under the pressure of a quick escape? The puzzling nature of the scene compelled the detectives to question their initial theory of a hastily executed robbery. The note initially posed a challenge due to its cryptic handwriting, but after diligent effort, detectives managed to decipher the unsettling message. It read, "I have been watching for a long time," and in one corner, a provocative plea taunted them, "Come get me." To cover all bases, the detectives embarked on a thorough search for any evidence of forced entry. Yet their investigation revealed all doors were securely deadlocked, windows were locked with their screens intact, and window treatments remained undisturbed. The absence of any signs of unauthorized entry deepened the mystery surrounding the tragic event. With the peculiar evidence at hand, detectives began to entertain a drastically different scenario than initially assumed. The cryptic note, the secure state of the home, and presence of a gun on the kitchen counter suggested an unsettling possibility. The perpetrator might be someone in the household. "Separate the kids," Detective Dotson ordered, believing that the resolution to this tragic puzzle might lie closer to home. AJ, who was already seated in the back of a police cruiser, watched as officers approached with brown paper bags. The intention was clear. Detectives wanted to test for gunshot residue, an indicator that could implicate involvement in the shootings. Kara, who was overwhelmed with grief and shock, was in tears as her hands were carefully bagged by the officers. The arrival of their grandmother, Miss Kay, at this critical moment added another layer of emotional complexity. Witnessing her grandchildren being treated as potential suspects amidst the turmoil of their parents' violent deaths was a harrowing sight. She was torn between her instinct to protect them and the harsh reality that the investigation was veering towards a conclusion that could permanently harm the family. Given the absence of forced entry and the peculiar clues left behind, detectives quickly focused their attention on AJ. Merely 11 minutes after beginning their examination of the crime scene, they considered him a person of significant interest, hinting at a theory that the tragedy might indeed have originated from within the walls of the family home. Guided by their suspicions, detectives moved to carefully catalog who was present at the scene, a task made urgent by the growing number of family members arriving in the wake of the tragedy. Among them were Antonio's mother, Miss Kay, and Don's parents, the Whiteleys. The detectives initiated their interviews, choosing to speak with each individual separately to piece together the events of that night. Josh, the eldest son, was the first to be interviewed. 3 weeks prior, Josh came back from Blinn College after facing academic failure and losing his scholarship. According to AJ, he moved back into the family home, sharing the third-floor loft with him. Upon his return, family members observed that Josh's behavior had noticeably changed. He had poor hygiene, appeared unkempt, frequently used marijuana, and consumed alcohol. Kara observed him spending extensive periods in the bathroom, talking to himself as if he was conversing with an unseen presence, suggesting he might be struggling with mental health issues or an internal turmoil she likened to a demon. According to Kara, tensions escalated shortly after Josh returned, culminating in a heated confrontation with his parents. The argument, filled with shouting and anger from both sides, ended with his parents declaring they would cut him off financially and insisting he leave the home. Not long after, Josh moved into his own place, just around the corner from the family's home. But at the scene of the murders, Josh appeared profoundly disturbed. His response to the detective's questioning about his whereabouts was immediate. Josh said he rushed over from his apartment, which was less than a mile away, after receiving a call from AJ. Josh's interview with the detectives was short, but they kept a close eye on him even after it ended. Following his interview, detectives took photographs of him and his hands, a standard procedure in the investigation. However, considering the circumstances of the crime scene, with the weapon found within a secured home, detectives did not deem Josh as a person of interest at this juncture. So detectives let him go. The focus then shifted to the grandparents, with detectives probing into the family dynamics. It was during this line of questioning that a startling revelation emerged. One of the grandmothers, unprompted, suggested that if AJ was involved, it could be attributed to his struggles with drugs. This admission caught the detectives off guard and signaled a potential motive. With new leads to explore, detectives then shifted their focus to AJ and Kara, who were interviewed separately to ensure the integrity of their accounts. AJ was quick to mention that Kara, only 12 years old, had been asleep during the incident until he woke her. He detailed how she was unaware of the night's events. Standing outside of the police cruiser, AJ then shared his own account. As detectives continued to process the scene, a new frantic call came through to 911.
Houston 911, you need medical, police, or fire?
Somebody's been shot.
Excuse me?
Somebody's been shot. I need police.
Okay, ma'am, please, I need for you to calm down for a little bit.
I'm at my boyfriend's apartment, and he just woke me up. And he ran over to his house because he lives like 2 minutes down the street because his brother got a call. He just got there and just called me and told me that his parents had been shot.
Hannah, Josh's girlfriend, was deeply concerned about the night's events and Josh's well-being. She had been staying over at Josh's apartment when he received the distressing call from AJ. Awoken from her sleep by Josh, she listened in alarm as he relayed an intruder was in his parents' home and that AJ had informed him their parents had been shot. In a flurry of action, Josh retrieved his shotgun from the closet and hastily left, leaving Hannah in a state of fear and disbelief. As the investigation progressed, detectives at the scene concluded they had sufficient evidence to proceed with an arrest. AJ, being only 16 years old, was handcuffed and taken into juvenile custody. 5 hours later, during the intake process, an officer affixed an orange visitor sticker to his shirt, marking the beginning of a new and daunting chapter for the young teen. AJ and his younger sister underwent gunshot residue testing, with swabs taken from AJ's hands, shirt, and sweatpants to detect the presence of GSR particles. At 6:53 a.m., AJ found himself in front of a judge. She carefully read to him the Miranda warnings, instructed him to repeat the lines, and then asked, "What does this mean to you, Antonio?" AJ's response was clear, that if I don't want to say anything, I don't have to. The judge confirmed his understanding with a simple, "That's correct." In compliance with Texas law, which mandates that a judge must personally read Miranda rights to juveniles, AJ was brought before a judge for this crucial procedure. This process was designed to ensure the minor's understanding of their rights, involving the judge reading the rights aloud, then having the juvenile repeat them back, and finally explain in their own words what they mean. The intent is to confirm that the juvenile understands the significance of the right to remain silent. After this preliminary procedure, AJ was escorted to an interrogation room at the police station, where he willingly recounted his version of the events to the detectives. Detectives began their questioning by asking AJ about his familial ties. AJ fondly characterized his father as his best friend. However, his narrative took a nuanced turn upon discussing his mother, suggesting a more complex and possibly strained relationship.
I mean, ultimately, we're here. We got to, we need to sit down and talk to you, figure what happened today, what's been going on. How was your relationship with your parents in general?
It was a pretty good relationship.
Okay, you get along with your mom, get along with dad, no problems, no
me
issues?
Me and dad were really close. And then me and my mom, me, my brother and my sister had our little issues with my mom, but it was never anything like serious. Like it was just like family stuff. But we were all like really close, so it's like a.
And what about Dad?
Dad was like the go-to for everything. So.
Any recent problems, any issues between you and him or anything like that?
No. Like my dad's a pretty like chill guy. Likes to just talk things out. So any problem that we did have, we just talk.
Okay, and it's just in the house. It's you, your mom,
my dad, and my little sister.
What's Mom's name?
Don Armstrong.
Okay, and Dad's your
Antonio.
Yeah, because you're a junior, correct? Right. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And then what's your sister's name?
Kayra Armstrong.
Kayra?
Yeah.
Okay. And she's 12. And now you have an older brother that doesn't live there?
No, he does not. He just moved. He was going to Berlin, and he just moved back like 3 weeks ago. He's going to the Art Institute now, and he lives in those apartments. Like our house is here, and when you come out and make that left on Maple Ridge, he lives in those apartment complexes right there.
Okay, so right around the corner.
Yeah, it's right around the corner.
Okay, right around
his house. Yeah.
Now, how is his relationship with everybody in the family?
I mean, he's really like me. Him and my dad are like a really close group. Like we sit down and talk a lot, and then him and my mom are like identical people. Like their personalities are the same, so they're close. And then me and him are just like have a really close brother relationship. And then my little sister like loves him.
Okay.
As the detectives delved deeper into their questioning, they became increasingly convinced that strained relationships might have served as a significant motive for AJ's potential desire to have his parents killed. AJ went on to lay out the timeline of the events of the day leading up to the murders.
So we got to get down to what kind of happened today. What we got questions, we got things we got to discuss. Some of them, they're not easy, but I mean, it's tough questions for us to ask, and it's tough questions for you to answer. So that being said, I mean, how did today kind of start? Starting out from the morning. Yeah, from the morning. What time did you get up?
So it was Friday. I didn't wake up, I don't know, until like 10, 11 o'clock. And I stayed in my room all day and just watched Netflix. My parents were like gone, like they were in and out of the house. My dad works from home a lot now, ever since he hurt his knee, so he's just been working at home a lot. And my mom's in and out. She was mainly at our Bel Air gym like the whole day. And then she came back, and it was like she came back around 5, and it was me, my dad, and her. And then my mom and dad got dressed, and they went to one of my dad's friends' events that he had. So they were gone until like 8. And then when they got back, I went to go pick up my little sister from my grandmother's house, and we came back. We got back to the house at like 9 or 10, and then my little sister, I think she went straight to bed. My parents were laying in their bed. I don't know what they were doing, and I was just upstairs just watching Netflix still. And then it was like probably 1 or 2, and I was still up, and I was like, I turned off my TV. I was getting ready to go to bed. I went to the restroom, and when I came out, I heard the door open, and I haven't been feeling well like this whole day. And I thought it was my parents, so I like walked downstairs. So I was gonna ask if I can get some medicine, and like as I was walking downstairs, that's when I heard the 2 gunshots go off, and I ran back upstairs. And then when I ran back upstairs, I heard somebody run out of my parents' room and like hit the door. And then I don't know how they got out. I don't know because if they would have went out one of the doors, our alarm would have went off. So like my only guess is they had to have gone through a window, because those don't go off with our alarm system. Like it's not like connected. And after I ran back upstairs, I went into my closet, and that's when I called 911, and like I had the phone call. And when the cops showed up, the lady told me to go downstairs, and I was like, I have a little sister here, I need to get her. And I went to my sister's room, I woke her up, and then me and her both walked downstairs, like let the cops know that it's not like it's just us, like we're not armed or anything like that. And they walked us outside, and that's when I immediately called my brother, because he lives like right up the street, and him and my cousin, they both showed up. And
Who's your cousin?
Trenton. It's like I saw the guy, like I feel like I should have done something, but I mean.
Well, did you physically see somebody? Or?
No, like I saw him running.
Okay, but then you would have seen him go out a window or out a door or something?
No, because when like you've been into the house, so it's like my parents' room's here, and then you'd have like it's when you come out of my parents' room, you go this way. And like this window, it's impossible. Like that window's impossible to get out of.
Second floor too.
Yeah, it's second floor. So either he would have had to have gone like this way and then gone over there by my sister's room, or he'd have to gone downstairs and out through one of the first floor windows.
Okay, and then you said from you were upstairs and you heard a door.
Right.
Which door?
My parents' first door.
The first door in the room.
Because normally my parents...
Which goes into the study.
Yes.
Okay. Now, the person that you've seen, I mean, what did he look like?
I mean,
is it he or she? Or?
It was definitely a guy. It wasn't a girl. There wasn't like long hair or anything like that. I mean, they had it was like a mask, and like you could only see the eyes and the mouth. But he looked like a black guy. But I'm not like 100% positive. But I'm pretty sure it was an African American, and like I'd say like 6 feet maybe, somewhere around there. I couldn't give you like an age range. I didn't really like get to see his face or anything like that.
Despite the brutal events that had unfolded just 5 hours earlier, detectives found AJ's reaction to their questioning notably peculiar. His demeanor lacked any visible signs of distress. There were no tears or evident nervousness. AJ maintained a remarkable stoicism throughout. In the course of their interview, when detectives informed AJ of his mother's passing, they were taken aback by his complete lack of emotional reaction. Their seasoned instincts told them that his calmness was not typical for someone who had just experienced such a traumatic event. Also, the inconsistencies in AJ's narrative raised red flags for the detectives, who were already puzzled by his demeanor.
I hear everything you're saying.
Right.
And ultimately, there are some issues. And I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you there was some issues, and we kind of got to go over and kind of get to the bottom of what's going on.
Exactly.
Ultimately, you're out there, they swabbed your hand.
Right.
So ultimately, if you fired a gun, even if you wash your hands, it's going to show. It's going to show.
Right.
So if there was something more, something different that happened, this is kind of the time to talk about it. Regardless of what your relationship was with your dad, if it's good or if it's not so good, and you just don't feel comfortable talking about it, that's a whole separate issue.
Right.
Ultimately, we need to figure out what's going to happen, what happened today. So again, if there's something different, this is the time. Hey, we're at the police department. Bad things have happened, and ultimately, this is kind of the time to talk about it.
Exactly.
Not later, not another time, because I mean, if anything, it's for them. This is they don't have a word in this at this point in time. Okay. Last we heard, your dad is still in the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
Your mom didn't make it. Okay. So it's a bad thing. So you understand the seriousness of this. Okay. So that's why we need to know what happened.
Nothing different.
Okay.
That's the story.
Okay.
Then AJ's troubling ability to deceive became clearer as detectives began to share with him bits of what they knew about the crime.
Does your dad own a gun?
Yes, he does.
One gun. Do you know what kind of gun it is?
I just know it's like a pistol. I think it's a 22, but I'm not like 100% positive. Like only time I've ever like used it was when we went to the gun range when I was like 8 years old or something like that. But like that's about it. And I know he has his case in one of his drawers, and like my dad, his drawers, the closet and under the bed is like off limits. So like I've never gone in there or like seen it or anything like that, except for when he brings it out. So, like, I don't know where he was keeping the gun at the time, but I know he keeps it in one of those 3 places.
Okay. So, possibly a case in the drawer or somewhere in the closet.
Right.
Okay, and that's where he keeps it. 22. You think it's a 22?
I think it's a 22.
What color is it?
Black.
Black. Is it a revolver, automatic? You know the difference between the two? Revolver, they have the cylinder that turns.
Oh, it's not a revolver. Then it's definitely...
Like a clip that goes in it?
Yeah, a clip that goes in it, and then, like, you, like, flip the safety, and then you fire.
Okay.
Detective Dotson, upon his initial examination of the crime scene, had taken note of a bullet and surrounding debris on the floor. Returning to scrutinize this clue further, his attention was drawn upward, where he discovered a bullet hole in the ceiling. Using a trajectory rod, the investigative team determined that the shot had originated from the 3rd floor loft, specifically AJ's bedroom. So detectives headed up to the 3rd floor for a more thorough search of AJ's room, which revealed a hole in the floor, cunningly hidden beneath a pile of socks. Armed with this information, detectives momentarily hesitated before probing further. "Are you certain you haven't handled that gun?" Following this inquiry, AJ's account began to shift.
Ultimately, when we're in the study that leads to your dad's room,
right?
In there, when you look up, there's a bullet hole in the ceiling that comes from the loft, which is your bedroom.
Hole in the ceiling.
Yeah, that comes through the floor. from the loft, from your room upstairs.
Yeah.
Where your room is?
The third floor.
Yeah.
There's a bullet hole in the ceiling.
There's a bullet hole in the study area that goes through, and you can see that it comes through because it pushes out in the study area.
I've never seen that.
They use a trajectory rod too.
Yeah, and they use the trajectory. They have the rod. They use a rod. They put it in there to see what the angle is.
Right.
And then on the floor, there's an actual bullet that was actually fired.
How long has that been there?
Well, that's why we're talking to you, because there's fresh sheetrock on the floor.
Right.
So, and that's kind of what we're getting at. There's things out there that we're trying to figure out how this has happened. You know, if there's 2 gunshots or 4 gunshots.
Right.
How do we have one that's coming from the room upstairs, and then we've got other ones in there?
I can explain the gun from the room upstairs. It was like 2, maybe 3 weeks ago. Like me and one of my friends was just like playing around, and they were about to leave, and he was like, "Hey, well, not really. He was like me. I was like, "Hey, like, have you ever shot a gun before?" And they were like, "Nah, I've never done it." And I was like, "You want me to show you how to?" And like, I like went and checked the 3 places, and the gun was under my dad's bed, and I like laid the pillow. I laid my pillow and then like a blanket over it and a blanket under it, thinking like that would stop it, but I guess it did not stop it.
Yeah. Now, see, and that kind of goes back to what we were saying just a minute ago. You know, because a few minutes ago you said that you haven't seen it, you haven't shot it since you were a kid, and then now we kind of give you a little more, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. So, you know,
I understand.
We don't want to keep getting deeper into this because there's more.
AJ had previously claimed that his last interaction with his father's gun was at a gun range when he was 8 years old. However, when detectives confronted him with the discovery of the hole, AJ's narrative changed. This revelation not only cast doubt on his earlier statements, but also hinted at a premeditated aspect to the crime, challenging the detectives to unravel the truth behind AJ's composed facade. AJ's change in his statement revealed to the detectives that he indeed had access to the murder weapon, despite his persistent denial of using it on the night of his parents' murders. He strongly denied any involvement in the tragic event, and he very confidently challenged the detectives that the forthcoming gunshot residue tests would corroborate his claim of not having any GSR on him.
If the gun was fired tonight, you know, again, the GSR test is going to show it.
Exactly.
So to say that you didn't, or it was fired.
I didn't fire it tonight.
No.
Last time I fired it was like 2-3 weeks ago, when I put a. I guess my parents just never saw that. Because I mean, that was a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But ultimately, that's what I'm saying. Is even if you wash your hands, whatever you have, it's still going to show.
Right.
Okay. So that's why I'm saying is, you know,
something from like 3 weeks ago, you think?
No.
Oh,
you fired a gun tonight.
Oh,
you know, whether it's up in the room or whether it's in, you know, it's going to show that's there.
Exactly.
Ultimately, so or let's just say there was somebody else in the house with you. If that's the case, we need to know. Somebody we need to talk to. But again, we've already went through hey, I haven't seen it, I haven't fired it since I was little, and I don't know where he keeps it. We don't go there, it's off limits, so I don't go in there. To, okay, I went in there. To, yeah, we were up there and we fired a gun, and we put the towel, we put the blanket and all that stuff. So you kind of see where we're going.
And that's like the only like.
No, I know,
yeah,
but
I understand where you're coming from.
I just don't want it to be where like, wow, and now there's gunshot residue on his hands or on his clothing.
There won't be any gunshot residue on my hand or anything like that.
Or something like that.
Right.
Or let's say Dad makes it. And say, hey, this is what's going on. This is what happened.
Right.
You know, it's just anything can happen at this point.
I know. And I know I didn't personally touch the gun. Like, I know there's no gun residue on my hand or on my clothes or anything like that. So I know it has nothing to do with me. I just don't understand. I don't understand how he got out or even how he got in.
The detectives have been questioning AJ for more than half an hour. Applying more pressure, detectives sought to elicit a confession from AJ by pointing out discrepancies between his narrative and the physical evidence observed at the crime scene, indicating that his account did not align with their findings.
And ultimately, you know, the gun is still in the house.
Right.
Okay, so it's on the kitchen counter. So it's one of those things where if somebody's running out of the house, there's no time to
put it on the kitchen counter.
Put it on the counter, and there's even like a little paper where there's some scribbling on it. So there's not really a lot of time if you're running out of the house, jumping out of a window to go put the gun there and then write a note. So you see, that's why when you say, hey, he ran out, jumped out of a window, he didn't go out of a door, because if he doesn't know you're there or whatever it might be.
I'm assuming that's what it is. I was on the third floor. I don't know what happened.
Well, the doors were all locked.
Right,
even when we got there, the doors were locked. You had to unlock the door to come out.
My dad locked all the doors.
You had to unlock the door to get out. The back door's locked. Everything's locked.
Right.
So if somebody's in the house, it's just you and your sister, where are they at?
Exactly.
And if they're running out and they're jumping out of a window, I mean, there's no blinds messed up. There's nothing that shows somebody went out of a window. And the gun is placed on the counter with a paper and a pen with some scribbling. There's the time.
Yeah, I understand.
If you're rushing out.
Doesn't seem
so,
right.
I mean, that's one of those.
I don't know like exactly what happened from the time when he came out of the room to when he left, because like as soon as I saw him, I was gone upstairs. So I don't know exactly what happened with him. I'm just saying I'm assuming that's how he got out, because I don't know any other way to get out of our house.
When detectives probed deeper into AJ's relationship with his father, AJ firmly maintained that there were no conflicts between them. However, the detectives adopting a more intense approach revealed that his grandmother had indicated otherwise. What AJ would reveal next provided detectives with further insight into the tense dynamics within their household. While examining the scene, detectives also noticed a troubling burn mark on the carpet at the top of the stairs just outside AJ's parents' bedroom.
Okay, so I know you guys saw the black little thing on the carpet when you walk upstairs. Yeah, I was like playing with matches and I dropped it. I dropped one and didn't realize it, and I just walked away. And then like the carpet set on fire, and then my dad came and confronted me about it, and I was like, I don't know, because I was like, it's stupid that I was playing with matches. I can't just admit. So I was like, I don't know. I had nothing to do with it. And like, I don't know, like my dad like took that personally. He was like, you like straight up like to my face. So I told him the next day what actually happened, and he was like, you like straight up like to my face, just like lied to me, and like that like it hit home with my dad. But I mean like that day like we talked about it. Like we've been fine. Like me and my dad, whenever we do have problems, like we sit down and we talk about it and we solve it. Like then.
However, a complicating factor arose. The burn marks emitted the distinct odor of accelerants, suggesting the use of gasoline or rubbing alcohol.
How long ago was the carpet burned?
That was Tuesday.
Okay. All right. What'd y'all put it out with? What did Dad put out?
That blue pillow that's right there.
Put out the pillow?
Yeah.
Did you spill anything on the floor before?
No, I didn't spill anything on the floor. That's the thing that was like confusing to me. I didn't spill anything on the floor.
What's the bottle of rubbing alcohol that's empty in your bedroom?
I don't know.
I'm just asking because the other investigator that was out there says that the floor right there smells like accelerant, which is like some type of
I know, like gas or something like that. Yeah, right. That's what me and my dad, when like it happened, we both said that it like smelled like gas somewhere, and we didn't know where it was coming from.
Yeah.
But like, we don't have any gas at the house. So.
I mean, it could be rubbing alcohol. That's why I'm asking, because that easily lights.
I know that rubbing alcohol was from my dad's room, and I took it from his room.
What'd you take it for?
Because I needed it.
At this juncture, AJ was unaware he was the focal point of the investigation. The detectives, employing a tactical approach, were urging him to admit his role in the events. They emphasized that the gunshot residue will reveal the secrets, cautioning him that it would definitely indicate whether he had discharged the firearm. The detectives explained to AJ that when a gun is fired, blowback typically lands on the shooter's hands and clothing. They emphasized that regardless of how thoroughly one attempts to clean, not all traces can be removed. But AJ was adamant. "There's nothing that will come back that it's on me," he said. Despite AJ's steadfast claims of innocence, the detectives intensified their approach during the interview. They directly challenged his narrative, asserting their disbelief in his account. They pointed out that the house had been fully secured with all doors locked and the alarm system activated, leaving no plausible way for an intruder to enter.
And I honestly don't buy that somebody was able to rush out the house, place a gun, write a note, if it wasn't something where you were involved, then you know who is, and they were in the house, and you know it.
Right.
But ultimately, if that's the case, we need to know because we need to talk to that person. And if it wasn't, then we need to know because if we talk to that person and they weren't there, then they're gonna tell us what happened. But like I said, I'd be lying if I didn't say that I feel like something more has happened.
Detectives harbored strong suspicions of AJ's involvement, finding his account implausible. The absence of any signs of an intruder contradicted his narrative, yet AJ was unwavering in his confidence that his GSR test would come back negative. This certainty raised questions among the detectives. How could he be so confident? They speculated whether an accomplice might have been inside the house, possibly exiting through a concealed exit that AJ was aware of. The detectives had another significant piece of evidence in their arsenal. They asserted that the 911 call pointed directly to AJ's guilt, emphasizing the fact that both of AJ's parents had been shot, yet his demeanor remained surprisingly calm throughout the entire conversation with the 911 operator. That's far from normal, the detectives remarked.
Okay. When you called 911, you were very calm on the phone. Your parents had both been shot, and you're very calm on the phone. That's not normal. That's not a normal scenario.
You can ask the police that have been I'm just I was crying, but I can't. My brother calmed me down, and I was bawling, crying, coming out of the house.
I understand that. I'm talking about when you called 911 when this incident happened. I'm not talking about down afterwards, several minutes after your brother showed up.
So I didn't really know what happened. I didn't know if they were actually dead. I didn't know if I genuinely just didn't know what happened. And I've tried to explain that I had nothing to do with this, and I guess I'm just gonna have to wait till all the tests come back to prove that I had nothing to do with this.
But you knew something bad happened.
Yeah, but I had nothing to do with it, and I guess when the all the tests are gonna have to come back and prove that AJ had nothing to do with this, and that's how it's gonna go. Because clearly my story isn't matching up with what was shown, so we're just gonna have to wait till till everything comes back to show that I didn't do it.
It's not even so much the tests. Because the thing is, it's not even so much the test.
Okay, so what happens when the tests come back and I had nothing to do with it?
But it's not just the test.
No, I'm just asking. No,
it still doesn't answer. The tests don't answer all the questions.
But when you figure out I don't have gunpowder residue on my hand,
what if you had gloves on? What I'm telling you is the tests can help us, and they cannot help us. But ultimately, we have issues that we can't get around.
I honestly don't know what else to say, so we might as well just end this interview.
The detectives continued to probe AJ, specifically drawing attention to the moment in the 911 call when AJ uttered, "It's all my fault."
So was there somebody else in the house? I mean, literally, you have to...
I don't personally understand it either, because I know, personally with me, I had nothing to do with it, so it doesn't make sense to me either.
And then to kind of forward to 911. I mean, I called our dispatcher and I asked, hey, we need to listen to the tape where you called 911.
Right.
And about 7 minutes into it, he said, "This is your fault. This is your fault." So I mean, something like that.
No, this is my fault was at the point where when I saw and I didn't do anything about it. That's what I was saying. Because when I came outside,
you said it's all my fault. It's all my fault.
Well, I mean, I felt like I could have done something.
Yeah, but that's a little bit different than it's all my fault.
That's the exact same thing I said when I walked outside to the police.
To detectives, this statement amounted to an admission of guilt, and they pressed him for an explanation. Then detectives brought to AJ's attention a significant inconsistency. If there had indeed been a masked intruder, one would expect that to be the first detail mentioned in the 911 call. "Help! There's a masked man in the house. I heard gunshots from my parents' room," would be more like what they would expect. However, AJ failed to mention any such intruder throughout the 16 minutes he was on with the 911 operator. Despite the detectives' valiant efforts, AJ stuck to his story, saying, "I understand this situation does not look good at all for me. I didn't do it. and I didn't get anyone to do it. Following his interview, AJ, at the age of 16, was formally charged as a juvenile with capital murder and placed in the Harris County Juvenile Detention Center, where he consistently upheld his initial story. While AJ was being questioned, the family members started to congregate at the hospital, drawn together in anticipation and dread. Antonio's condition was dire. He was sustained by life support, teetering on the brink of the inevitable. Those who knew Antonio understood his resilient spirit, but despite his tenacity, it became clear that he would not survive his injuries. Tragically, a few hours later, Antonio passed away. August 6, 2016. 8 days after the tragic incident, a somber gathering of family and friends convened at Windsor Village Church in southwest Houston for a heartfelt memorial service honoring Antonio and Dawn. It was abundantly clear how deeply they were loved. So many people attended that the service had to be relocated to a larger venue as their home church couldn't accommodate the crowd. The church was nearly filled to its capacity, with nearly 3,000 attendees paying their respects. AJ, who had been in detention since his arrest on charges of killing his parents, received permission to attend the service. Accompanied by plainclothes officers, he quietly took his place in the front row, his handcuffed hands discreetly concealed beneath a jacket. Following the service, AJ was escorted back to the Juvenile Detention Center. Meanwhile, the detectives who were busy investigating the case had concluded that the nature of the crime suggested that the perpetrator possessed a detailed understanding of the household's layout and routines, implying that only someone with close ties to the family could execute such a calculated act. This led detectives to ponder a pivotal question. Was there another individual, besides AJ, with an equally intimate knowledge of the home who could be involved? As the investigation advanced, detectives acknowledged the imperative need for obtaining stronger evidence to secure a capital murder conviction. Their primary goal crystallized to establish an unequivocal connection between AJ and the firearm used in the crime. To accomplish this, they delved deeply into the details of the Armstrong family's life, even seeking subpoenas for the family's phone records in hopes of uncovering any leads that could bolster their case. Meanwhile, the eagerly anticipated gunshot residue test results finally arrived. Negative. The GSR tests for both AJ and his younger sister returned negative results, confounding detectives who anticipated finding evidence of residue on AJ's hands. AJ had confidently and repeatedly asserted to the detectives that none of their tests would link him to the crime, and his prediction proved accurate. This unexpected outcome left detectives questioning whether AJ had been truthful in his account from the start. The detectives were taken aback by the results of the test, which did not align with their expectations. They had been confident that the evidence would unequivocally indicate AJ had discharged the firearm, especially after uncovering his deceptive claim about last handling the gun at age 8. Their probing revealed that AJ was far more familiar with the gun's whereabouts than he initially admitted, suggesting he could have accessed it on the day of the murders without his father's knowledge. After further digging, detectives uncovered the reason for the absence of GSR on AJ. They learned that .22 caliber ammunition, the type used in the crime, often does not leave GSR, offering a plausible explanation for the negative GSR findings. This revelation prompted detectives to consider new questions. Was AJ aware of this characteristic of the .22 caliber ammunition? Had he changed clothes to conceal evidence? Or was there another individual present in the house who could have committed the crime? The investigation had to explore these possibilities to piece together the true sequence of events. Upon closely examining the collected evidence, detectives noted that the firearm was discovered on the kitchen counter adjacent to a note. This note appeared to have been hastily torn from a pad, which was located in a kitchen drawer. A comprehensive analysis conducted on these items revealed a critical detail. AJ's fingerprints were absent. They were not found on the firearm, the notepad, the pen used to write the note, or the note itself. In fact, AJ's fingerprints were conspicuously missing from all key pieces of evidence at the scene. Given AJ's admission of having fired the gun just 3 weeks prior, one would logically expect to find his fingerprints on it, raising questions about the absence of such evidence. In their exhaustive search for evidence within the household, detectives scrutinized everything available to them. They found no water left in the sinks, no signs of soap usage, and no gloves. Remarkably, there was an utter lack of physical evidence linking AJ to the crime scene. Where had it all gone? At this juncture, the motive behind the shootings remained elusive to detectives. The idea that AJ, who outwardly seemed to be navigating the typical trials and tribulations of teenage life, could be driven to murder his own parents was perplexing. August 10, 2016, 12 days since the murders. Several days following the murders, a break-in occurred at one of the gyms owned by the Armstrong family. The incident was caught on the gym's surveillance cameras. At this time, AJ was detained in a juvenile facility. The footage revealed 2 masked intruders shattering a window with a brick and entering the premises. Inside, they appeared to search methodically for something specific, rummaging through drawers. Despite the presence of valuable items such as big-screen TVs and various equipment, the intruders departed with only a computer, ignoring other potential lucrative targets. This incident prompted detectives to ponder a possible link. Could there be a connection between the break-in at the gym and the masked murderer AJ claimed to have seen in their home? The targeted search by the masked intruders during the gym break-in suggested that they were on a mission for something specific, leading detectives to speculate about the Armstrong family's possible entanglements. The timing of the burglary, closely following the murders, inevitably raised suspicions. However, after thorough consideration, detectives concluded that the break-in was an isolated incident. Given the high-profile nature of the case, they reasoned it was likely opportunists exploiting the situation, aware that the gym's operations would be disrupted in the aftermath of the owner's tragic deaths. Ultimately, despite this diversion, detectives remained convinced that all evidence gathered in their extensive investigation pointed unequivocally to one person, AJ Armstrong. Unable to establish a solid connection linking AJ directly to the firearm, detectives turned their attention to analyzing blood spatter patterns, hypothesizing that shooting his parents at close range would likely result in their bloodstaining his clothing. Accordingly, items of AJ's clothing, including a t-shirt, sweatpants, and flip-flops, were sent to the crime lab for a detailed analysis. Upon conducting a comprehensive examination of AJ's clothing, the lab delivered its findings to the detectives fairly quickly. The results for the gray shirt, sweatpants, and flip-flops were conclusive. Negative. The lab confirmed to the detectives that there was absolutely no trace of blood on any of the submitted items. Navigating through the complexities of this case proved to be a formidable task for the detectives. The absence of a discernible motive, fingerprints, gunshot residue, and blood evidence left them at an impasse, so they decided to revisit AJ's own statements for potential leads, and they started with a thorough re-examination of his 911 call for any overlooked clues. Upon a thorough re-evaluation of the 911 call, detectives unearthed notable peculiarities in AJ's extended 16-minute dialogue with the operator. This lengthy interaction provided detectives with a trove of inconsistencies in AJ's account. A critical oversight in AJ's narrative was his initial omission of a masked intruder during the call, a detail he only introduced while speaking to detectives 5 hours later. This discrepancy suggested to the detectives that AJ might be attempting to manipulate the narrative. Detectives found it notably significant that AJ's concern during the call was overwhelmingly centered on his sister's welfare, virtually ignoring his parents' plight. Despite the audible gunfire from his parents' bedroom, AJ's response was curiously hesitant when asked about the need for medical help. Twice, he claimed he didn't know if medical help was needed. Given the circumstances, the need for medical help for his parents should have been apparent, especially considering that neither emerged from their room after shots were fired. AJ's apparent indifference to seeking immediate medical help for his parents, in stark contrast to his concern for his sister, raised suspicions. This behavior suggested to the detectives that AJ was deliberately delaying medical assistance for his parents, especially his father, who was still alive. Remarkably, when paramedics did arrive, Antonio was found alive, albeit barely, struggling for survival. Detectives theorized that AJ's reluctance to promptly secure medical aid for his father was strategic, aiming to prevent any potential contradiction of his narrative should his father have regained the ability to communicate. When the 911 operator questioned AJ about the location of his father's gun, AJ feigned ignorance, audibly pondering, "God, where does he keep his gun?" This act was an apparent effort to distance himself from the weapon that he admittedly test-fired just days before the murders. Detectives also zeroed in on AJ's mention of experiencing a high-pitched noise in his ears, a common symptom of firing a gun in a confined space without hearing protection. This detail inadvertently placed AJ at the scene of the crime, possibly even within his parents' bedroom at the time of the murders. Another critical moment in the call was when AJ, seemingly caught off guard, exclaimed, "How did you get into my house?" This outburst was interpreted by detectives as a slip that revealed his internal turmoil. It suggested a realization that he had overlooked how securely locked the house was, including windows, doors, and the alarm system he admitted to deactivating for the police to come in. All of this indicated that no intruder had entered or exited the home around the time of the murders. These insights led detectives to a deeper understanding of AJ's behavior during the call, offering them new avenues to explore in building their case against him. As detectives diligently pursued the investigation, several unanswered questions about the incident remained. However, a potential turning point arose when Maxine Adams walked into the precinct, presenting new information that promised to shed light on the case. December 2016, 5 months since the murders. In December 2016, 5 months following AJ's apprehension, a potentially pivotal development arose. Maxine Adams approached the Houston police, claiming she possessed information that might connect the tragic occurrences at the Armstrong home. She suggested a possible link in an alleged prostitution ring involving her then-husband, Cecil Adams, who was a known associate of Antonio Sr. She further mentioned rumors of death threats against Antonio and a notable change in his life insurance policy just before his demise. However, detectives determined that Maxine's account was clouded by uncertainties. She admitted to hiring a private investigator to monitor Cecil due to her suspicions, but failed to recall the investigator's name. Her evidence of the supposed prostitution ring and Antonio's involvement was vague, primarily based on phone records. Also, Maxine could not recall the source of her information regarding the death threats or the alteration of Antonio's life insurance. Given that Maxine's claims lacked supporting evidence, her allegations were deemed not credible, leading detectives to concentrate on AJ's statements for potential clues. Upon revisiting the 911 call, detectives uncovered numerous inconsistencies that could potentially strengthen their case. However, the precise timing between the occurrence of the shooting and AJ's subsequent emergency call remained unclear. To address this gap, investigators decided to examine the home's alarm system records. The examination of the alarm logs offered vital clues regarding the sequence of events leading up to the murders. The house was equipped with 2 motion sensors, one on the first floor and another on the second floor. To the detectives, This setup meant that any intruder entering the house and ascending the stairs would inevitably trigger the first floor motion sensor, providing a clear pathway of movement within the house. On July 28th at 9:52 p.m., the alarm was activated, set to alert the police if any doors or windows were breached, yet allowing for free movement within the house. AJ claimed that Kara was responsible for arming the system before they retired to their respective rooms. The records indicated that the motion sensor on the second floor near Antonio and Don's bedroom became inactive at 10:39 p.m., suggesting no further movement in that area. AJ also mentioned being in his third-floor bedroom, texting his girlfriend until nearly midnight and hearing gunshots after going to the bathroom around 1 a.m. However, the alarm logs presented a discrepancy. At 1:09 a.m., the second-floor motion sensor outside of Antonio and Don's bedroom activated, followed by the activation of a first-floor sensor at 1:25 a.m. Notably, at 1:56 a.m., the alarm was turned off using a key fob, coinciding with the moment AJ and Kara left the house and police entered. This sequence contradicted AJ's account and indicated that if an intruder had entered from the ground level, the motion sensors would have registered in reverse order, first on the first floor and then on the second floor. The alarm data diverged significantly from AJ's narrative, providing detectives with a pivotal piece of evidence. It suggested that the perpetrator was already inside the house, lending substantial support to the theory that the killer had been within the home all along. Detectives were certain they had their guy, but they didn't have a crystal clear motive. However, as detectives delved into the family dynamics, especially the interactions between AJ and his parents, a potential motive began to crystallize. AJ might have been acting out of adolescent discontent. April 2017, 8 months since the murders. As the investigation intensified with AJ as the primary suspect, the advent of 2017 brought significant developments. Almost 18, AJ transitioned from being considered a minor to an adult under legal statutes. After spending 8 months in juvenile detention, his case was moved to adult court. This shift had a silver lining for AJ, as it presented him with the opportunity to post bail and be released from custody. Upon his release, AJ maintained his innocence, entering a plea of not guilty. As part of his bond conditions, he was required to wear an ankle monitor, a constant reminder of the ongoing legal battle he faced. Detectives were eventually able to access AJ's call log and text messages, a process that can be delayed by the time it takes extraction software to penetrate the phone's security. And just as detectives expected, text messages between AJ and his parents shed light on the dynamic within their family, revealing their growing discontent with his behavior. In the lead-up to the tragic events, the exchanges highlighted a pattern of dishonesty and evasion from AJ. But his parents' responses exposed their mounting frustration and attempts to discipline him. Don, embodying the role of the strict disciplinarian, consistently held AJ accountable for his actions. In October 2015, she encouraged him with words of support, saying, "Son, you can do this. We believe in you. You've got to get your grades up. You can do this." However, by January 2016, her messages took a tone of suspicion, accusing him of lying. The situation deteriorated further in February, with Don noting, "You're starting to lie to us." The subsequent months saw a continuation of this theme, with the parents' messages becoming increasingly somber, filled with chastisement and disappointment, while AJ seemed to deflect and dismiss their concerns. Despite their best efforts to set him on the right path, including investing in a quality education and providing material comforts like giving him his own car, AJ persisted in making poor choices, neglecting his schoolwork, skipping basketball practice, using marijuana in the house, and taking his father's car without permission. These texts painted a vivid picture of parents in turmoil, struggling to bridge the growing divide between them and their son. 3 months prior to the murders, AJ faced a situation that would later reveal much about his relationship with his parents. After midnight on April 23rd, Kate, AJ's girlfriend, requested a ride home from a party. Although AJ initially deleted these text exchanges, detectives managed to recover them. AJ decided to pick Kate up, arriving at approximately 1:09 a.m. In their texts, Kate expressed concern about AJ's parents finding out, to which AJ assured, "They won't know." When Kate worried about AJ getting into trouble, he explained his plan to claim he hadn't gone out, anticipating his mother's delayed response to cover his tracks. The following morning, Don was clearly upset upon discovering AJ's late-night request to pick up Kate, emphasizing that AJ should have never left the house without permission. Her response was firm, indicating her intention to verify the story with Kate's mom, highlighting that Kate should have relied on her sister instead of AJ. Despite AJ's insistence that he hadn't actually gone, Don, knowing her son's tendencies, checked the alarm system and confronted him about his dishonesty. AJ's attempts to maintain his lie were elaborate, claiming he had only stepped outside to retrieve sunflower seeds from his car, and later to get his laptop charger, but never actually left to pick up Kate. Meanwhile, AJ was simultaneously texting Kate, instructing her to keep their arrangement a secret. Dawn's subsequent text to AJ reflected her skepticism, asserting that the alarm system's records contradicted his story. Despite Dawn's insistence that she had proof of his deceit, AJ remains stubbornly committed to his version of events. This episode, characterized by AJ's persistent denials in the face of evidence, provided detectives with a glimpse into his capacity for manipulation and his complex dynamic with his parents. Another incident emerged that suggested AJ may have previously attempted to kill his parents, occurring just 2 days before the tragic murders. During his interrogation, AJ nonchalantly mentioned a burn mark located on the landing at the top of the stairs on the second floor, just outside his parents' bedroom. He casually admitted to lighting a match and walking away, significantly downplaying the severity of his actions and the subsequent reaction from his parents. When AJ's parents initially confronted him about it, he blamed his little sister, making the all-too-familiar assertion, "I had nothing to do with it." AJ claimed that he and his father had resolved the issue the following day. Further investigation into AJ's text messages revealed that he had told his girlfriend Kate that the incident had been taken lightly, even laughingly dismissed by his parents. However, this portrayal was starkly contradicted by the evidence detectives found regarding Dawn's actual response. Far from finding the incident amusing, Dawn was deeply troubled by her son's reckless behavior, and she turned to Josh to express her disappointment. AJ faced relentless pressure from his parents, especially his mom, initially concerning his academic performance, which escalated upon their discovery of his marijuana usage within the home. The harmonious relationship AJ described to the police contrasted sharply with the reality depicted in their text messages. These messages not only corroborated the detectives' direct observation of AJ as a detached, unemotional individual, but also exposed a persona capable of deceit, someone who could present one facade while secretly harboring ulterior motives. Regarding a motive, detectives acknowledged the difficulty of pinpointing AJ's exact reasoning. However, they speculated that a combination of factors related to discipline, such as restrictions on his freedom, confrontations over his grades, and being caught in lies, might have cumulatively driven AJ to harbor deadly intentions towards his parents. This analysis suggested that the escalating domestic tensions could have played a significant role in motivating AJ to murder his parents. March 2019, 2 years, 8 months since the murders. In March 2019, the case went to trial, with prosecutors facing the challenge of having no DNA evidence, no fingerprints, and no blood spatter to directly link AJ to the crime. The cornerstone of their case was the alarm system data, which they regarded as their most convincing piece of evidence. The prosecutors were confident that the alarm system records would conclusively demonstrate that the alarm was set at the time of the crime. AJ's defense strategy centered on directing suspicion toward an alternative suspect, one with significant mental health challenges, access to the home, and knowledge of the gun's location. The suspect they proposed was Josh Armstrong, AJ's older brother. The defense argued that Josh was the sole person, aside from AJ, who possessed both knowledge of and access to the crime scene. To support their claim, they challenged the reliability of the alarm system, suggesting it could not conclusively prove AJ's involvement. Also, the defense addressed the issue of the bullet hole found on the floor, explaining it away as a result of AJ showing a friend how to handle the weapon, merely an act of youthful recklessness. After all, he was just 16 years old. Prosecutors, however, were able to demonstrate that when AJ was pushed to identify the friend, his narrative shifted, claiming the friend had departed prior to the test firing of the gun. They argued that this friend never existed. Ultimately, the jury was divided in their verdict regarding AJ's involvement in the murder of his parents. 8 jurors were convinced of his guilt, while 4 believed in his innocence, so the judge declared a mistrial. June 2019, 2 years, 11 months since the murders. The decision to retry AJ came swiftly from the district attorney's office. They were sure they had their man, but needed to go back to the drawing board with their evidence. Then in the months that followed the trial, detectives would gain access to an intelligence goldmine for their case. Celebrite, the software used for cell phone data extraction, rolled out a major update with a special focus on iPhone iOS. The new update opened a window into the phone owner's actual usage. With this new software capability, detectives could now track not only when an app was installed or opened and the searches performed within it, but they could also determine when the device was locked or unlocked and when it was plugged or unplugged. These insights offered a detailed map of the device's usage, providing clues about when and where the device's owner was actively engaged with it. The alarm system played an essential role in the prosecution's case, but this time their strategy extended beyond this single piece of evidence. Using the updated software, prosecutors were able to extract additional data from AJ's cell phone. This technology enabled them to see specific details, such as when AJ had plugged in or unplugged his phone. With the 2 unrelated technologies, AJ's iPhone and the home's alarm system, prosecutors were able to construct a more detailed timeline that seamlessly fit together like a puzzle. The chain of events. On the evening of July 28th, just before the tragedy unfolded, Kayra activated the house alarm at 9:52 p.m. following her nightly farewell to her parents. Everyone transitioned to their rooms upstairs. The alarm logs indicate that motion outside the parents' bedroom ceased at 10:39 p.m., while AJ's phone activity suggests he was texting his girlfriend until nearly midnight. At 1:02 a.m. on July 29th, AJ ceased using his phone, only to plug it in shortly thereafter at 1:04 a.m. Then at 1:08 a.m., records show he unplugged his phone, but it remained locked. A minute later, at 1:09 a.m., the second-floor motion sensor activated. Prosecutors propose this was the moment AJ began descending the stairs with a fatal intent. Throughout this period, AJ's phone display flickered on and off, suggesting he was using its ambient light to navigate the darkened house and avoiding the conspicuous brightness of iPhone's flashlight feature. It was here, at this time, between 1:09 a.m. and 1:16 a.m., when AJ approached his parents, Dawn and Antonio, from behind. As they slept on their left sides, he executed his mother with 2 shots, one directly to her head. and the other piercing her earlobe before also hitting her head, resulting in her immediate death. The noise awakened Antonio, who lifted his head only to be met with a single shot to it. In the moments that followed, with Antonio struggling for life, AJ is believed to have attempted to mask the scene, covering his mother's head with a pillow from behind, and then going around the bed to do the same to his father. Standing before his father, who was struggling to breathe, AJ positioned the pillow over his father's face. By 1:25 a.m., the first floor motion sensor was triggered, indicating AJ's movement to the kitchen. It was here. Prosecutors contend that AJ prepared the scene to suggest an intrusion, disposing of the weapon on the countertop, rifling through the kitchen drawers, composing a misleading note, and attempting to erase any evidence of his actions. 15 minutes transpired before AJ dialed 911 at 1:40 a.m., reporting the sound of gunfire from his parents' bedroom. 6 minutes later at 1:46 a.m., police arrived on the scene and placed a perimeter around the house, ensuring no one entered or exited after the crime. 10 minutes later, at 1:56 a.m., officers instructed AJ to come out. AJ descended the stairs to Keira's room. He woke Keira, disarmed the alarm. Then together, they descended the stairs and opened the door to the awaiting officers at 1:57 a.m., marking the moment law enforcement officially entered the scene. From the phone records, AJ was highly active, doing things on his phone the entire day. He was texting his girlfriend most of the day, but during the 31-minute window when his parents were murdered, his activities ceased. Prosecutors say AJ was the only one awake and moving around in his home between 1:09 a.m. and 1:40 a.m. when the alleged intruder came in. AJ's cell phone data and the motion that was recorded on the home's alarm system lined up perfectly like a puzzle. What was he doing for those 31 minutes? Prosecutors argued that the moment AJ called 911 and said he just heard gunshots from his parents' room, he lied because 15 minutes lapsed from the time the gun was placed on the kitchen counter at 1:25 a.m. and the time he called 911 at 1:40 a.m. What was he doing those 15 minutes? Prosecutors also located a rubbing alcohol bottle that AJ had filled with gasoline. He poured the gas at the landing right outside his parents' bedroom and set it on fire. They say AJ tried to burn the house down just 2 days before the murders. AJ acknowledged lighting the match and then nonchalantly walking away. His parents caught it and put it out. 2 days before the murders, with his mom and dad in the house, AJ placed a fire in front of his parents' only escape. Upon examining AJ's iPad, detectives uncovered a web search that was conducted in the early morning following his attempt to ignite the fire in his home. The search was alarmingly precise, inquiring, how can a car be rigged to explode when started? This distressing find on AJ's digital device offered a glimpse into his dangerous intentions and mindset. Prosecutors asserted that the hole found in the middle of AJ's bedroom floor was created on the same day as the murders, with the rest of his family absent for the majority of that day. Keira was in Galveston with her grandmother, and AJ was confined to the house on punishment. Prosecutors argued that AJ seized the opportunity to conduct a test firing of the gun. He aimed to determine the noise level of the gunshot, questioning whether it would be loud enough to awaken his sister. To muffle the sound, he fired the gun through a comforter and a pillow, with the bullet ultimately landing on the floor in the office used by Antonio when he worked from home. When questioned about the timing of firing the gun, AJ revised his account from 3 weeks prior to conceding maybe it was this week. October 2022. 6 years, 3 months since the murders. Prosecutors say that their evidence, including the attempted arson, the test fire incident, AJ's conflicting accounts, the armed house alarm, and his incriminating web searches, that A.J. Armstrong not only killed his parents, but that he had been planning on killing his parents for days. This accumulation of evidence painted a picture of premeditation and intent. Bolstered by their consolidated evidence, prosecutors proceeded to bring A.J. to trial once again in October 2022, determined to secure a conviction based on their theory of his deliberate and calculated actions leading to the tragic demise of his parents. A.J.'s defense continued to point fingers at his brother, suggesting his actions were driven by anger from being financially cut off and ousted from the house. Countering this, prosecutors drew on A.J.'s own statements during his interrogation, illustrating that the family had always intended for Josh to live in his own place upon his return. And when he did, he directly moved into his own apartment instead of going back to the family home. He never returned to the family home. Prosecutors argued that the defense aimed to convince the jury Josh resided there so that they could insinuate that the incriminating web search found on A.J.'s iPad was conducted by Josh. They highlighted a contradiction in the defense's argument by pointing out that no parent withdrawing financial support would simultaneously gift that child a Mustang. Also, prosecutors highlighted the absence of any negative text messages between Josh and his parents on Antonio and Don's phones, showing no evidence that Josh was on the outs with his parents. In a significant turn, the judge admitted Josh's medical records into evidence during the second trial. These records depicted Josh as battling severe psychotic episodes that included him hearing voices urging him to harm himself and others. In the records, Josh claimed he witnessed the murders of his parents. Prosecutors countered this narrative by presenting medical records from Josh's doctors, which challenged the literal interpretation of this statement. They contended that Josh wasn't physically present in the room during the murders. Instead, his traumatic experience stemmed from witnessing his parents being taken from their home on stretchers. Prosecutors also argued that Josh's mental health issues, including symptoms of schizophrenia, were exacerbated by the trauma of his parents' deaths, positioning this tragedy as the trigger for his deteriorating condition. The defense challenged the reliability of the alarm system, suggesting it could not be trusted as definitive evidence. They also offered an explanation for the bullet hole found on the floor, stating that A.J. was merely demonstrating to a friend how to use the weapon, implying their actions were the result of adolescent recklessness rather than malice. They provided evidence that Josh had also fired the gun before. Then, after 18 hours of deliberation, the jury remained divided, with 8 jurors convinced of A.J.'s innocence and 4 convinced of his guilt. Undeterred by the deadlock, prosecutors prepared for a third trial against A.J., realizing the need for a dramatic new piece of evidence to tip the scales, and the discovery they made next promised to astonish all involved in the case. Friday, June 2nd, 2023. 6 years, 10 months since the murders. Detective Rossi, a renowned expert in bloodstain pattern analysis, was enlisted to scrutinize the crime scene and determine the manner in which A.J. allegedly executed his parents. Despite having reviewed photographic evidence, Detective Rossi sought to examine the pillows used to cover Antonio and Don's heads after the murders. Prior to the trial's start, arrangements were made for Detective Rossi to inspect these items closely. During her inventory examination, Detective Rossi's attention was drawn to a shirt, sweatpants, and sandals identified as A.J.'s attire from the murder night. Her curiosity was piqued, so Detective Rossi decided to inspect the clothes more thoroughly, particularly since initial DNA tests conducted months after the trial found no blood on them. A.J.'s clothes were left out of the previous trials because of this. On the crucial Friday, under the watchful eye of a surveillance camera in the evidence room, Detective Rossi prepared the garments for inspection. It was then she noticed, hidden under a visitor's badge, affixed to A.J.'s shirt the night he was questioned, what appeared to be reddish-brown stains. A presumptive test on these stains indicated a positive reaction for blood, posing an important question. How did Antonio's blood end up on AJ's clothes if he claimed to have never approached his parents? As detectives awaited the results of the DNA analysis, they delved into the puzzle of how the blood spatter could have landed on AJ's clothing and remained intact under a sticker for 7 years. Their investigation led to a pivotal theory. They already knew that AJ first shot his mother, with no subsequent blood spatter on the bedding due to the manner of the shooting. When his father, Antonio, instinctively raised his head, AJ fired again, still resulting in no visible blood spatter on the surrounding linens. The critical moment came as Antonio, gravely injured, struggled to breathe. His lungs, filling with blood, caused him to expel blood with each labored breath. It was when AJ approached to cover his father's face with the pillow that micro droplets of blood, propelled in the air by Antonio's breathing, landed on AJ. This scenario was corroborated by the paramedics' findings upon their arrival. These fine droplets of blood found their way onto AJ's shirt, where they were inadvertently sealed and preserved by the visitor badge sticker. This analysis suggested that the presence of Antonio's blood on AJ's clothing was the result of close proximity during these tragically final moments. The uncovering of this evidence at the 11th hour dramatically altered the trajectory of the case. The significance of the newly found blood evidence required a postponement of the third trial. After a period of anticipation, the DNA analysis results were finalized. The Houston Forensics Science Center confirmed that the DNA extracted from the bloodstains originated from a single source, conclusively matching that of Antonio Armstrong, Sr. This revelation introduced a pivotal turn in a case that had already been fraught with complexities and prolonged investigations. The question that lingered heavily in the air was, how had this critical piece of evidence remained undiscovered for 7 years? August 2023, 7 years since the murders. As the third trial approached, AJ and his family yearned to move past this ordeal. By this time, AJ had embraced new chapters in his life, welcoming fatherhood and marrying his longtime partner, Kate. Their wedding was a joyful occasion, marking a period of happiness and forward-looking plans, but the prosecutors had their own plans for AJ. Reflecting on the previous trials, prosecutors acknowledged that they had faced an underlying challenge, convincing jurors that a young, handsome, charismatic individual, supported unwaveringly by his family, could commit such heinous acts. To bridge this gap in understanding, they transformed the courtroom into the crime scene for the third trial. A life-size reconstruction of the Armstrongs' bedroom was presented, complete with a staircase and a bed flanked with 2 mannequins to vividly demonstrate the crime's execution and highlight the lies in AJ's account. Detective Rossi testified, explaining the likely scenario of Antonio's blood spattering on AJ's shirt as he struggled to breathe as a result of the gunshot wound. This evidence, preserved under a visitor badge sticker, became a focal point of the trial, despite being unnoticed by those who had interacted with AJ immediately after the crime. Despite the strength of the blood evidence, prosecutors felt confident in their case's merits without it, emphasizing the reconstructed crime scene to make their point. The defense, meanwhile, was taken aback by the late discovery of the blood evidence, attributing it to potential cross-contamination and arguing that repeated handling of the evidence could have led to the transfer of blood flakes. Then, after years of drawn-out proceedings and 2 hung juries, the third trial concluded on August 15, 2023. Following 11 days of testimony from 31 witnesses and over 40 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a unanimous verdict on the second day, guilty. AJ was guilty of capital murder. His legal team promptly filed an appeal, which was denied 2 months later. Given his age at the time of the crime, AJ is eligible for parole after serving 40 years. The verdict was met with mixed emotions. While the prosecution felt vindicated, AJ's family, steadfastly in their support, were extremely disappointed. Miss Kay, AJ's grandmother, expressed her belief that true justice had not been served and that Antonio and Don would not find peace with their son's conviction. The prosecutors had the opportunity to speak with members of the jury after the trial. Surprisingly, the jurors told them that it wasn't the blood evidence for them. It was AJ's own words. It was AJ's lies on the 911 call and lies on the interrogation tape that swayed their decision. With this result, prosecutors were convinced that they not only successfully prosecuted the right person, but also cleared the name of the person whom the defense wrongly targeted, Josh Armstrong. Prosecutors condemned the defense's tactics as shameful for aiming to sacrifice one brother to save the other. They considered Josh to be the most profoundly affected victim in this ordeal, emphasizing that the loss of his parents had devastatingly impacted his life. He spiraled out of control after witnessing everything he loved, his own parents being taken from the house on stretchers. Even Hannah, who had once dreamed of marrying him, left because he had transformed into a shadow of his former self. Prosecutors highlighted that on the night of the tragedy, right after dialing 911, AJ called Josh first, his big brother, who, in his own words, he respected and trusted. Josh was the first in the family to rush to the scene. When he asked AJ what happened, Josh said to AJ exactly what detectives have said to AJ all along. Your story makes no sense. This case has stirred a mix of emotions and opinions. There's speculation that AJ's young age, good looks, and charisma may have influenced the jury's difficulty in reaching a conviction. Prosecutors depicted him as a highly manipulative individual, capable of deceiving even his own family throughout these tragic events. They asserted that there was only one reason the murder weapon was still in the house, because the murderer was still in the house. Yet the question of AJ's guilt remains a contentious topic. What do you think about this case? Do you think AJ is guilty? How do you feel about the defense making Josh the scapegoat? Let's continue the conversation down in the comments section below. Please be respectful. And as always, I'll meet you there. Thank you, Antonio and Don, for being examples of love and light. May you rest in eternal peace.